the exalted, the honorable or venerable three personages, three father and son. So it's like Jason Kappa, the two chief disciples, Jayatse and Jitsun. In addition to his extensive studies, Jason Kappa entered into many retreats and engaged in personal practice and such. And in his retreats and meditations, he had direct visions of Manjushri. And so after years of living in such a way, of studies, retreats, and extensive teachings and so forth, he passed away in the 1400s. And so this particular teaching called the three principal aspects of the path, he gave this to a disciple named Lalang Dapa, but it wasn't just to this disciple, but this disciple along with many others. And so if we think of this teaching, the three principal aspects of the path, it really is a condensed version or a condensed form of the more elaborate teachings on the stages of the path, the enlightenment, Lamrim Chenmo. And so with the teachings on the graduate Lamrim Chenmo, the stages to the path of enlightenment. It's written in just the root verses, whereas what we will be studying on these three principal aspects, it's the root verse words are integrated into the commentaries by this Nonshu Dhamma Bhata. So incorporated into the title of this commentary, which, as I said, includes the root words of the three principal aspects, is the lamp, the light that clarifies the meaning of the words, and it clarifies the words and meanings of this text, of this
괜히 쳐봐도 이게 중국에 중국에 다들 손보지 그러면서 그러면서 제가 갑자기 산지 그래서 무슨 요가 나가 지고네 shumangshawala 그래서 무슨 상관이 시거든요.
And so if you so in this explanation of the three principal aspects, this text is divided into three parts. There's the beginning, which lays out the intention and so forth. Then there's the main body of the text, and then there's the conclusion. So for those of you who've been studying Renunciation, what's my perfect teacher, you'll recognize that there we also have those same three parts: the beginning, the body of the text, and the conclusion. In fact, almost all texts that are written have the same outline.
정보 얘기 되려면 subject 숨송입니다. 쳐봐줘서 좀 담자가 이게 연구가
So the first part of the three has three parts, which is the first is the praise, the second is the promise to compose, and then the third is urging the disciples to listen.
정보 쳐봐줘서 나와는 여러분들도 라마는 차트 런치를 찍고다 지금 찍고들이 쳐봐줘서 되는거.
And so the first part, which is the praise, is actually what it begins with is I prostrate to the Lama.
그리고 진짜 되고
So I prostrate to all the venerable monks.
지금 찍고들이다 되는데만 충분히 되는 소리입니다. 지금은 그 제대로 된 아스디 갈때는 제대로 말이에요. 제대로 가는 소리는 제라는 된지니 담보될 비중보다 추가적이니까 추가적으로 이제 그거 중보다 담보.
And so just that one line alone in explaining that is we need to first think of what the purpose of such a what the purpose of making such a reverence, like being so reverent toward the lamas. So it begins with that.
저거지가 굉장히 저거도 굉장히 그거지 제라면 또 제라마디가 아주 가지고 제일 먼저 공부로 제라면 된주에 좀더 통마 된주에 담보 좀더 통마되니까 저거지고 제공으로 저거지고가지 라니 문제 그런 기부 담보는 저거도 튕지 제라데 규제norm라 미래 상부 샤바다 그러 제라마라니 문제가 그런 저저 기부 담보는데 최저 세바나시 그러니까 제대로 잡아지는 뭐 아주 이 거가 디자인 많이 봐 체력이 되잖아요. 그렇지. 제가 준비해 보니까 미래 상부 잡으시고 저거 근데 직 보시면서
Midday Samba.
미래 상부.
And so it begins by saying the Jutsun Lama basically is the person who wrote this commentary is making prostrations, like paying homage to Tsongkhapa, and that he's writing this commentary with the intention of clarity and with fully the proper intentions.
민나시도 굉장히만데 아주 텐션 좀더 다시 시비스. 최저제발이나 최저제발이 손은 사과 되게 괜찮네. 텐션 좀 되게 그것을 보고 텐션이가 남존 차리고로 하는 소원은 그래서 되게 좀 다시 시와 지쳐도 좀 다시 시와다. 제가 인형도 좀 다시 뭐 정도다. 좀 다시 매수나 전직이 된게 차상화지다. 이런
It's also traditional when the author of such commentaries or texts make such a praise or homage that the secondary purpose is to make the wish, make the prayer that there be no obstacles to such a writing, and that they will fulfill this writing and this explanation to its conclusion, that the writing will be completed with no obstacles. And so what we discuss as being the three principal aspects of the path: the first is renunciation, the second is the altruistic mind, Bodhicitta, and the third is the peer view. And furthermore, there's just this one line alone, the first line of homage, the word Jitsun. We can also take that to mean Jitsun Manjushri. It's like pointing out to Manjushri. Manjushri and all lamas, all venerable lamas who have come before, so Jitsun, Vrindawa, and Uma. And so just I want to explain briefly what Jitsun, the word Jitsun means. So again, in addition to honoring Manjushri and all previous lamas, the Sanskrit term for Jitsun is Bhaja.
Sanskrit language, Bada Shabadi, and the young people by enough. And the Tejas will be back. Ever going to trouble. Ever watching the trouble. Tejas will drop. Tejas language. Tejas, Poaching and Shadata, member on the trouble. So that. That's the reason that we do Shabay on the floor. And the Lama of the Kavachi. About everything, about changing the vision, coincidence that is in there, so to do this, they go on the show.
And so,
Maybe someone talk about it, so for the show.
of this is by paying homage that we are able to cross the ocean of psychic existence and overcome all negativities in psychic existence.
Yamasta digi, but Jidun Shibaka, the train the Patas, the turn the Savana, the Dushing, the Sunga, Umbachi Deva, and Sunda Shabadella, and Jabba Shabadella, Jabba Shabachika by Fudana, Yana, so many times, Bendy Shave, so many lady, J. Sheva, 제기 책이 사스키 무치가 제가 신지가 소미치를 제가 잡수고도 근데 준래 준바시 준비 양산스케 나와 주 근데 주장하나 밴드시 책이야 준바로 책 잡수고도
And so there's other Sanskrit terms for Jetsun, Somi for J, and Benda, Bende for Sun, Bende.
네, 준바는 밴드
So we can also to apply the Sanskrit terms.
준나시가 제제의 책들 소미를 잡아이나 아니 더 주기 놓고 싶어도 더 하던 책을 주기 놓고라 이제 바로 지원을 책을 잡고
And so Somi or J would mean the crown jewel of Pada maybe.
하던 책을 사마이가 그것이죠.
So it's a crown jewel of gods and humans.
아니 더 뒤에 소미실 되는지 밴드 준준실 준바를 되니까 밴드실을 되니까 제시를 가르쳐 보잖아. 보통 예주 타다래 아니 nombre 준실을 보니까 보통 예주 그 영화 예수 같은 좀 영화 예수니까 이게 왜 가사 이게 왜 아직 또 세금 소화가 이게 세금을 쏘고 그러니까 보통 양도 손수는 다들 좀 받아요.
And then Sun is a word which is in reference to upholding the vows, upholding all ethical standards, to be to eliminate all negativities of actions from the three doors of Bodhicitta mind. So upholding ethical standards in such a way.
그래서 지준실의 책이다. 또 제시만 보여요. 또 제대로 시비도 제시만 보여. 지금 여기는 아까서 봐봐 지준량이 지준 장면을 지정하고 지준 장면을 지정하고 이내는 개조의 대배분이 좋아지잖아. 지금 내가 지금 뭐도 한식 지금 양다고 송원된 지준 어디 제가 송을 잡습니다.
And so just that one word alone, Jetsun, has many meanings. As I just said, it's in reference to Manjushri, it's in reference to paying homage out of one's devotion and faith and respect. And then additionally, it's the actual meaning of the title or the term itself, Jetsun.
아니 그 제가 지준 제가가 라마데가 지준 라마는 차그에서 라마에 있으니까 라메게 고르라 라마에 상태나라 고르라 진짜로 라마 고르가 되는지가 고르시도 되는 거라나 아니 연된 길 관심 가진 지와다 연den이 차에서 하장계가 또 수고 연den이 더 소되니 가진 거니까 가장 가진 정보에 있는데 가진 지워.
So it's Jetsun Lama. So Lama within know to mean guru, and what exactly does that mean? The Lama should have completed all exalted qualities, have perfection of qualities, and also have the grace and being imparting upon one the graciousness of his being, his qualities.
야나 아니 연den이 좋네. 연den이 좋네도 라마 요거나 라마한테 소소이고 최근에 소가도 되게 조선 공동이 거니까 라마의 때문에 장고가 소리 치는 그래서 연den이 좋네 그냥 라마샤기가
So also Lama is the birth of all good qualities because it's in knowing the Lama and in the presence of the Lama, we're able to receive the teachings, hear the teachings, and then furthermore contemplate and meditate on these teachings. So the Lama should be the source of all good qualities.
야나 아니 된 도시 Ona Shubin, Ona Shubashi, Shecho Funga, Pendo Ladamata, Lama Rani, Geja, Geja, Sinjin Dara, Shetumba, Shetumba, Shake Chimbewanka, Pento, Pento, the corner Judah is a mother, Yemi Chinese, Sudu, Normal corner sugar, corner sugar.
And so in such a way then, the Lama displays and offers great benefit to many, and because he is the source, he or she is the source of all and so on.
Lama, Namla is a mother, Namla, it's a magic chakra. Mambo, you were not the Namla, machine, amongst the cover, Kavala Machine, Lama, and the chick, and the show is Lama Umabata, the other was one of Lama Chick, my Mambo is young. Sugar Jubaindi, one of the Sugar Jubaindi, the Nambi Chick, the year, on the Eration, Lama Khan, or Tansi,
And we are paying homage not just to one Lama, many, the important word here, many lamas, and we can think of the lamas, the Mappa, Rendawa, and all previous lamas. So just that one line alone basically is the first of the beginning meaning, beginning section, which is the praise or just our homage. The second is the promise or intent to compose, intent and promise to compose. And that has one verse. And so, and so this is this next verse is, I shall explain here to the best of my ability the essential points of the scriptures of the conqueror, the path acclaimed by all excellent bodhisattvas and the gateway for the fortunate ones aspiring for liberation. So just in that one verse alone, we can see the entire three principal aspects of the path in that one verse of 4 lines, particularly the first 3 lines. So, the English translation kind of moves things back and forth a little bit, so it sounds more poetic. But if you were to look at the Tibetan, the first line would represent renunciation, second line would represent bodhicitta, and the third line would represent the peer view. Or another way to look at it is the first line would point to peer view, middle would be bodhicitta, and the third line would be renunciation. Or thirdly, the first line could encompass all 3, renunciation, bodhicitta, and peer view, and so can the second, and so can the third.
그러니까 다다가서 보다 되면 디기 가만 쉬고 되니까 걔네들 외래시는 뭐 쉬고 있나? 담보디 개별 소라고 있는 시에서 개화시에서 괜히 소리가 개화라인 가려 나와 있나? 근데 뒤식이 자원이 개를 담보 개였나? 개화 또 수샤는 도가 상계 준비를 사는가?
And so the first line, which is speaking about the victors who have overcome all the maras, all the hindrances. And so someone who has accomplished that, who has conquered all of that, would be considered to be a victor. Basically, the Buddha.
소라브라디다 개별 소라브보다 개화를 넘어치 되게 소라브 간장은 소라비 저희 공부 기르시는 거 개발시나 주공 기르시도 근데 걔네 양수 되거나 소라브 연락 중에 대한 수 되거나 근데 걔네 숨 걔네 숨 내서로 무슨 수 되고 그 대답 문제 가려면 소라브 대단하다 도랑기 정말 쉬워 대단하죠.
And so that's making reference to all the essential scriptures of the conquerors or the victors. And here, if you think of it in the most elaborate way, it would be the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha. In a more abbreviated way, it would be the 12 branches of these teachings. In an even more abbreviated way, it would be the 3 baskets of the teachings, and then all the teachings that includes the term function.
대다 던지기 소라 대다 던지기다 가르쳐 보면은 그거 좋은지 괜찮아요. 좋은지 같은 거만은 근데 좋아하는 거 그거 진짜는 내가 보면 또 다르고 다도 얘네 내가 보면 상관도 다른 얘기인데 그러면 다도 얘네 다가도 던지기 놓고 봤어서 딱 찾아야 소가 대다 던지기 답은 남샤다 소라 대다 이제 되는 거죠.
And so, aside from the names of all these teachings that have not the names, but aside from all these teachings, what is the main point of these teachings and these writings? It's really for sentient beings to gain what we call a higher status, to gain the higher status of men and gods, to gain rebirth in better situations, and also to gain more perfection in what we call definite goodness. And so these teachings explain methods that how we arrive at those states of realization. And so and so these all these writings, all these teachings give the description, the method, the ways, they expound on the ways that we can attain these perfections. And they hold the heart or the essence of these teachings. The essence of these teachings, if we're talking about this particular text, this particular three principles of the path, the essence lies within. And we begin with that first aspect, which is renunciation.
제가 손하고 있는 걸 되는데 가서 내중을 잡아야나 제가 손하고 있는 걸 되는데 가져 나와야나 내중을 했으면 다 그냥 대신 당이 주어면서 까마 담보지니까 담보보다 내중 장사에 한다고 걔를 버리면 넣는 거 그리고 버리면 넣네 한번 담보도 양다고 따로 준비해 봐야나 내중이 잡라 양다고 따로 자는 거가 제가 손하고 있는 걸 되는데 가르쳐 보려나 또 양다고 따로 돈이도 따와지 근데
And so that line, which in the English is line 2, but actually it's line 1 from the Tibet, is the essential points of all the scriptures of the conquerors. And so, as I said earlier, we can think of that as being the essential point, as starting with renunciation, but you can also reverse it and think of it as being the essential point, as being the pure view, the right view.
어디기 가서 보다 강과 담보지시에서 이번 나선 거잖아. 이게 계속 담보는 거가 너무 수행이죠. 해도 수행이죠.
And then the second line is the path acclaimed by all excellent bodhisattvas.
계획세고 담배기보다 자주 쓰만 넘어가 계획을 생각하고요. 그래서 자주 쓰만 계획을 생각해서 자주 쓰만 모두가 우리가 되는 방향으로 말할 수 있는 거.
So the bodhisattva, the actual word, or the actual meaning of bodhisattva is the victor's sons or the conqueror's sons. And that's who we refer to as the bodhisattva. And so not only is the path proclaimed by the ancient bodhisattvas, but the bodhisattvas themselves are worthy of our praise and our homage, because anyone who takes on that path of altruism, they are certainly worthy of praise.
남들 가려고 남들도 자주 있으면 잘 되고요. 자주 있으면.
And what
교육에 문제가 좋아하는 시대에 사실은 차도가 있는 남들 데려옵니다. 자주 있으면 남들도 또 가진 좋아서 남들가 뭐가 있습니다.
And what is referred to as the path acclaimed by all excellent bodhisattvas, that path is the path of altruism and bodhicitta, practice of bodhicitta. And so that second line is quite easily understood. It's of the three principal aspects. That's the second bodhicitta.
아니, 저기 고개를 쥐어대. 내가 상보도 된다. 결정 타도 있는 경우 생기니까 결정하는 거래. 계속 상보도 된다. 최주들이 고가 비율이니까 최주들 계속 되게 강대를 강사되라 계속 상황에서 결정 계속 되는 강사. 계속 되는 강사들가 그런 게 되고 가잖아. 타바줘도 되고 그래서 타바줘이 가서인지 여든 다들 남기 중원을 좀 데려를 가서 지금 많이 봐. 가서 먹고 싶으니까 중원은 라미디 가르쳐도 하나 단다가서 봐야지. 가서 봐봐도 돈이도 벌잖아. 양다고 돈이도 당하지. 돈이도 싫어지. 가서 봐도다. 걔들 다들는데 라마 중원 비슷하겠습니다.
So the third line here in the English is the fourth. It's the gateway for fortunate ones aspiring for liberation. And what we mean by the fortunate ones is those who have the opportunity, the fortune to study and to practice Dharma, and who are able to fulfill those practices and make accomplishments towards their aspiration for liberation. And as I said earlier, this third line can represent the pure view of emptiness, of wisdom of emptiness.
한번 순발이 이중을 맞아서 그런 다도는 정말 이중을 맞아서 우리 강도 이중의 동의들의 실험을 야자로 계속 담아는 게 되게 됩니다. 대로서라고 인인부 된지 아니 담보 잘해진 이중을 잘 대안도 동의들의 실험 잘 쪽으로 야자 수 소소 단도가 속에서 한번 순발이 그리고 또 때디 근데 동의들의 실험 생기게 될 때 자다 신신과 예술을 많이 잡고 그래요. 대화도 되는 가사, 사과 되는 가사 대단가 예술이 사과도 계신 분이 됩니다.
And so, as I said earlier, we can look at just this verse in different ways. And the way I just explained it was this third line, the gateway for the fortunate ones aspiring for liberation. That can be in reference to the pure view of the wisdom of emptiness. But if you were to look at it another way, it can also be referred to as the line for renunciation. That gateway can start with renunciation.
결국 다른 놈이 좋은데 지단 유신당이 싫어서 제대로 지라니 근데 또 남기나마 순간에 단기 관계 수시반에서 제대로 지라니 뭐도 지내 잠배야 제 무슨 메시지인데 제대로 잠배야 그냥 제대로 지라가 남이 좋은 넘어 순간에서 담아 되는 않아서 제가 담아 잠배야인데 담아서 보다 담아 잠배야니까 제대로 지라 되겠습니다. 담아 되는 않아서 담아다 남이 좋은 넘어 순간에 랑게요 제가 뽑은 것이 지금 뉴스에 그래 배우자라니까 가도 또 개발이나 개발 많이 너무 쌓여서 신기 요번에는 이게 내도 많이 특징이 있습니다. 지금 뉴스에 대해서 가서 두들게 장이 시행이 되어서 지금 뉴스에 세상이 더 세상이 가지고나 내린 너무 나와 더 필요라서 뭐 나와 더 필요라 로산 더 다기 시행이 되어서 너무 좋아요.
So the last line, it says, I shall explain here to the best of my ability. So these three principal aspects. It is a form of a form of humility that for many great masters, even if they know, they remain humble and don't boast and just. And even though Jason Kappa is the manifestation of Manjushri himself, that aspect of wisdom, it still takes that kind of low, that place where he is humble. So he's just saying, I will explain this to the best of my ability to the disciple, Nolandapa, and all others.
내가 남이가 내려오십니다. 그래서 박수해야 되는 박수네. 바로 아주 다 미치다는 일 배워와나 미치다지가 연반의 박제내가 소라야 아주 지금 삼반이 영화이나 연반으로 삼반이 말아 그 바로 지금 소라지 라이 삼반이 되는 연반으로 남이가 아직 수제기가 발라지 Jimbalo soba kan tawa ine kewa chimala wanjo tobela soba nami la dewa nami de tona sande dewa de shewa ina nami de dewa ambo de le nemba de wa lemba lemba kan nami la merwa tende sam me sande wa 그런 실수는 가려 실수가 나와요. 시에 문제인데 거기서 너무 쉐고 문제인데 셀러스는 있습니다. 셀러스는 시작하셔서 잠바도 문제 보내 셀러스니까 나는 원 넘버 숨기 나와서 저런 시기
So he's saying, furthermore, he's saying, I'm giving this with no expectations. I have no expectations for receiving anything in return. I have no expectations that that these verses or this teaching will grant me or bestow upon me the fruits of like greater fruits, greater merits, and so forth. I have no such expectations. I'm giving this out of pure, out of love and compassion to disciple Mama Japa and all of you.
되게 봐도 아니 소바 던져와 한번 지부디 이해가 내리시는가 한번 감독님도 이걸 장기스 소바 양다가 더 내리시는 이번에는 괜히 잘도 이번에는 잘난 찍잖아 그리고 동안에 잘해 또 리제가 정말 순간을 잘해 주니까 감바 담보 되기가 정말 담보 되기가 순간 되고 그랬어 이번 되기가 순간 되고 그랬어 담보가 너무 순간 그래서 넘버 순간
So we actually look at the root verse. Again, remember that the first line is really the last. And so it's the second, third, and fourth line. That's in reference to, you can think of it, renunciation, bodhicitta, and the pure view of emptiness, or in reverse. Or you can think of all three lines as explanation of renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. Each line having explaining all three.
근데 가르치려면은 야나도 건지 지게들이 동기 구성을 야나 아니 계획 조정 거로 계획 수행하고 있는 거 전선인데 개화도 그거 뭐 다른 좀 봐. 소리가 아니 대소람이 가르치려나 개화 지sun 내가 개화 지sun 내가 어제 대체받을 수 있지.
양교씨 당분했어요.
개화 지게 지고를 싸워도 개화 수행하고 개화를 조정 과정이 좀 맞지. 디리션 수행으로 개화 투과하는 것이 수업을 해서만 개화 시중에 개화 승무다 개화 첨부 이게니까 수업 개념 수업서 관대 대체받아도 되게 된줄로 개념이 순서가 되다 개발한데요 삼성이 개발 삼성이 어제가 공대셔도 그거 공대도 무슨 상대이 수업되더라 개발 신발도 개발 전신의 공대 된줄 공대를 제발 인구를 개별 수업하고 인구를 본지 제재는 거지 내년 사다 주주가 있나 마상 내봐지 넘버 수 남이 줘 넘버 수 이제 샤세 와서 다 수나가 이거를
Okay, so if you were to think of all three aspects of the path in the first line, the first word would be Gawa, would be the victors or the conquerors, meaning the Buddha, victor, conqueror, Buddha. And then this, the teachings, the scriptures would have the root and the root text and the commentaries, and then the essence of it would basically, if it's saying the essential points of it, it would obviously include renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness.
이 강보듯이 가만히 봐도 예술 강보는 생각을 너무 중요해요. 예술이 가르쳐서는 예술이 요즘 장배양다 진가를 좀 모르는다 정말로 소관이 그것으로 계속 전주 선반 마찬가지로 계속 전주 선반
The second line being the path proclaimed by all excellent bodhisattvas. We're like referencing Manjushri, Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna, and so forth.
The number, phone number, is a somebody, phone number, Lambda Lama Imba, Jeba, Chashins, Lambda Lama Imba, the Sanju Sembri, the Chuba, the Sanju Sembri. Some Sanjus in the Yamen, Cheshoba, the Mashoba, Sanjus in the Yamen, Cheshoba, the Mashoba. Lampeda, the part, President Chowas in the top of the Cheku, Yewa Cheku, the number 8 of Jeba, Chashins.
And so the essential points of these scriptures that that are claimed by the excellent bodhisattvas such as Manjushri, or it lays out the teachings, the practices of the path that are to be adopted and that should be abandoned, and those that are to be abandoned. So it's clearly laid out what the practices are, and and so these bodhisattvas have such knowledge. So because of that, not only do we pay homage to such great bodhisattvas, but we are also recognizing the importance and the purity of this teaching of the three aspects of the path. And so it should be clear that anyone who is a bodhisattva, anyone who strives on this path towards excellence, they would have that very foundation, that very essential renunciation. They would have that renunciation, because without renunciation, true renunciation, then there's no ability to really pass that anything further to disciples and so forth without renunciation. Also, they've got to have a realization of the pure view of the wisdom of emptiness, which is the antidote to negative afflictions and emotions.
대대를 쓴 가면은 아버도 되겠어. 상계 보고도 되겠어. 상계 보면 대대선 대대를 쓴데 밀은 또 마미나 밀은 나와요. 밀은 나야 대대 아버도 나와서 뭐 상계 보면서 근데 밀은 내 마미나 이것을 신선지 생각이 들고 상계 도도 스토리 이렇게 가고 있는 거예요. 이제 바꿔 쓸줄 가래. 보완을 받을 상계 도도 뭐고
So there's a verse, some wise sayings, a verse from Shantideva, which is of the first meaning, which is the promise to compose. And if you recall, just that one verse, which is the promise to compose, explains briefly the entire three principal aspects.
리지는 숨바대가 냠바고 이래된 냠바고 있습니다. 로마도 중에 뭐를 이 송이들 암기하고
At the beginning is urging the disciples to listen. She gets
간다 세베 대라 마샤지 대조 동일 전체 선발이 여와게를 남라 일정 결대가 강을 이기는
So this the second verse is those who are not attached to the joys of cyclic existence, who strive to make meaningful this life of leisure and opportunity, and who place their trust in the path that pleases the conquerors. O fortunate ones, listen with an open heart.
사고 저거서 로마는 뭐요? 로마 간다. 로마 같은 거요. 로마 간다. 또 가사를 잘 보여. 간다 쓰는 가사 접수. 가사 이마 대다스. 근데 삼이 나서 보니 아까도 그러다 가다를 로마는 뭐죠? 저거서 보자. 이 시바를 비슷하다. 다들 미라서 보니 시바를 시바가 잘보이고 시바가 데라 마샤지 소리를 하래 시바를 대화 직체되는 대화 하나 심해 대화 하나 내가 대화 대례로 함께 상황을 자신으로 대화 탐제 교육을 통해 대화 탐제가 내가 대화 연애요 기준이가 되나요 동의를 하시고 유주와인데 대화 기준으로 아니 교육 동의를 통해 교육 동의 숨지 안에 교육 동의 하고 싶습니다.
So that first line is those who are not attached to the joys of cyclic existence. Those is in reference to the disciples, and disciples who are present. And this is saying the joys or the enjoyments of cyclic existence, of especially of men and gods, that whatever joy, whatever pleasure that exists and that comes from cyclic existence, that this is transitory, that this is bound to change, that nothing lasts in a steady way, and because it is transitory, that temporary joy can also change to pain or to suffering.
이제 될라겠네. 될라 그래. 집에 대화 될라.
And for that reason, do not be attached, do not be so completely attached to these joys of cyclic existence.
집에 대화지. 남자한테 마셔봐다 마신 거 남자 인구만. 그렇지. 그래서 전비 대화 먹으면 전비 주신 거 예원인데. 네. 대화만 해서 마신 거지. 그걸 하고
And so it's not expected that we are to give up everything immediately, because we are quite conditioned to life's joys and happenings and so forth. So it's certainly not something that is expected or we're being told we have to give up this.
그래서 제일 무시니까 제가 정도로 넘어간다. 집에 대화하려고 작업만 시켰어요. 대단함도 그가 이바들이 대조 등에 좀 많이 했는데 대조를 해서 지금 쓰는데 대화 기회가 这个就上面它确实有点的了，它这个努力生活吧，这头些人，这个玩的我就说，这个老不知道你钱嘛，好像也是给人这个，因为我多先把它给我给到，这个就有这个。
And so, that's saying those who strive to make meaningful this life of leisure and opportunity. The second line is in reference to the 8 leisures and the 10 opportunities or the 10 endowments. And for those of you who have been studying Gonzalo Michel, the words of my perfect teachers, you will recall that was the chapters in the earlier chapter of the common preliminaries. So if indeed we have this opportunity of leisure and endowment and having all the components of all the have all the components to really strive for a practice and make life meaningful. It's important to not let that go. To not, like for instance, because this situation does not last forever. And so it's important to really make the best use of it. And what does that mean? It's like really engaging in the practice of dharma and goodness and benefit. So it's like if we were to go to a treasure island, which is full of jewels and riches, if we were to go to such a treasure island and returned empty-handed, then it would be quite sad. It would be somewhat meaningless that you actually have this treasure, this incredible treasure and asset, and you don't make the most use of it. So say making the use of your leisure and endowment of this human rebirth by practicing dharma in its fullest way. I guess it's So we're not necessarily saying that you have to be a Buddhist practitioner, because there are some folks who might not have the same level of faith or understanding in Buddhism. But so in whatever way we can, if we just kind of lead our lives in a way which is of meaning, and we can help others and benefit others in whatever way possible, then that makes life meaningful. And so to accomplish all that, it's important to put aside any laziness, procrastination, and really put effort, be diligent in one's practice and efforts.
이 가만히 봤습니다. 저 되네 저 somebody is 뭐 somebody가 저와지가 너무 뒤에 봐. 저와지가 너무 뒤에 가려나 방법들가 이게 말은 거죠. 저와지가 너무 뒤에 거래. 저와지가 너무 많이 봐. 이게 맛있는 거다. 저와지가 너무 많이 봐도 문제 나는 거. 저와지가 너무 많이 봐 다르려나 지금 어디 봐도 지금 어디 보니까 다와서 지금 어디 봐도 지나십니다. 라로다 제라스 제나의 강도에 맞고거나 라로가 지상하다 지가 여러 라로가 같이 최근 지금 도난 내리니까 이제 남바도 지가 많이 저쪽이고 나무이다 같이 가요가 되게 라로도 있어 그러고 제라브레도 아마 그러다가 전부 전부 주로다 행 주로도 아마 수준을 요구하는데다 제라브레도 그거 전부가 최근이니까 좀 셔럽되고 좀 셔럽 어디 숨어가 다 대기고 다른 소가 되다 그래 시가 가도 막 시가 나와 말했습니다. 제가 지금 머리 봐도 나중에 야가요. 머리 좀 잘되고 제가 마도 봐다.
So the third kind is and those who place their trust in the path that pleases the conquerors. And so this is this particular reference is to stages of the path, and as we know it, that are not path heretics, not the lifestyle or the actions that are performed by primitive peoples. And even in old Tibet, before Buddhism, before the teachings of Buddhism were disseminated in Tibet, the old religion, or the original religion, was that of the Bunbus and the Lord Shenpa. So even there, we're saying that aim for the higher path, aim for the path that pleases the conquerors, and not these other ones. It's not just saying that Buddhist path or non-Buddhist path, but really like engaging in actions or actions and practices which are primitive, like that's what should be avoided.
이거 현다가 이제 유주주로다 가지주로 서고 그냥 뭐 저들 영어로 뭐 그냥 내가 이제 계좌다 뭐 플레이는 거 아무 강 요가 때마다 현다도 되는 이거 뭐 무상으로 선물하고는 유주주로다 가지주로 그냥 조주로 다 조고로 제가 주로 이제 뭐 이런 데다 주로 제가 약간 많이 좀 생기다 아주 맛있는 거 일단 여러분 수송하는 시간 주로 현다라다 그것으로 생각 그 현재 신발은 행동으로 그것으로 돼서 대화 진행되면 내가 내주로 와서도 대화를 내가 그냥 같이 주로 같이 또 우리 신발은 나중도 tanto 같이 하는 이슈를 그래서 그래서 마찬가지라고 해서 소수 주로 가야 뭐지 그래서 가지고 있는 것이 주로 전달하는 즉 마음의 제한을 적용한다. 마시를 통해 그것이 보고가.
So, in back in the 13th, 14th century, in Tibet especially, there wasn't such a wide knowledge of the different religions. And so this text is not going to differentiating between different philosophies. But in either case, as His Holiness often says, there's worth and there's value and there's necessity in the various religions of the world, because it speaks to various types of people and their needs and dispositions. And so there's value and there's benefit there. Because on the whole, so it's really important to not belittle and disparage other spiritual traditions.
다시 소리와 상경을 뒤에 너무 단어하라 또 얘기했습니다. 지금 넘버지 이번이네요. 넘버이 줘야고 보면은 지금 탑시부가 탑시니는 탑시부의 상계 쪽으로 나요. 셔럽 지구의 상계 쪽으로 와서 봐라. 대단하다 이제 넘버치 양다고 찾아가시냐고 마시나 해. 그리고 그들이 요리로 근데 이게 맛있습니다. 근데 라면으로 근데 이거 저희 미소가 이제 맛있습니다.
So it's not only the varying spiritual traditions in the world, but even within the Buddhist tradition, the Buddhist path, there are those who may not have a full understanding of the complete text of the path. And so some may advocate that there might be advocates of that enlightenment can be reached just by method alone, just by that alone, or you can gain enlightenment just through the wisdom practice alone. So it does not give you a complete picture, and it does not give you a complete whole to the path to enlightenment. So if you do meet teachers like that, it's kind of important to have that distinction, have that, be aware of that, and to not completely fall for those types of advice, that type of advice.
이거를 직접으로 지금 최선을 쳐가지고 내가 쳐가지고 상대를 많이 보고 상바지구이요 상대는 상대는 검지구이다 상대는 데려오는 영수가 이 다시 배송공수가 상마 영대다 도구로 저거지구이다 상대의 영어로 상바지구이 상대 공대지구이다 상대의 말 배송관념도 상고고요.
So we often speak of the three necessities for our spiritual path and enlightenment and reaching Buddhahood, that we need to listen, we need to hear the teachings, we need to contemplate those teachings, and furthermore, we need to meditate on those teachings. All three of those stages are really important. And so just to listen to the teachings is not enough, nor is just thinking about this or that, that's not enough, nor if it's just sitting in some meditation. It's really important to have all three, to have a broad understanding of the teachings of the Dharma, to really consider them, think about them, contemplate them to where you really understand it to its core, and then meditate on its essence. So.
어제 선물 연구도 나오다 개발 시중이 연구가 개발 시중이 연구냐 개발 시중이 연구인데 선물이야 개발 신고인이라는 개발 중고 다시 집다방 문제를 가해줘서 개발 중고들은 개발 신고들이야 상당히 까마리면서 되게 누구 내가 너무 연구가 또 계속 제대로 되겠나 이 자소서가 그래서 개발 시중에 수도 소인 바이니까 개발 중고이나 개발 신고지 개발 중고나 맛이 왔습니다. 그래도 마다니 또 중고들은 중고마다니 개발 중고들은 그런 거 가져지 태도로
Well, even in Buddhism, we have both the Theravada and the Mahayana. And so, and in each of those ways of practice and teaching, there might be some differentiations, the way it's explained, the way it's practiced, and so on. So it's important to really to have again a broad view, to have some knowledge of both of Theravada and Mahayana, and not disparage one or the other, and really thinking one that not disparage it, because if you do, then there's non-virtue that's accumulated with such thoughts.
또 미리 대주를 이마대 송도다 저다다 저와기도 남라 이동 가와를 이동하면은 가와를 다 무슨 이시가가 이 이시치고라나 되는 맛은 다다 된다 이 맛이 이시 맛이 송도다 이런 맛이 송도다 이런 진짜 가를 나와있나 저와기도 남라 저와라이 교수님 저와 상계에서 교수님 저와 세제 라디사마다 세제 상황도 세제 함제 개발하는데 또 내보시고가 또 하나마다 또 내보시고가 또 가와시고가 또 개발계가 남부에 가려면 내조 장생 양들을 따와대스 대승부디 내가 전부인 거 대승부디가 내가 저거를 하고 있다 그때는 함제 저거 담바되니 이제 리신도 때문에 제대로 보내 대전 어디죠? 이쪽 말에서 대승부는 남는 처벌이나 아니 계제 대화도 세례제가 담지 예보인데 또 예보인데 그래서 대승부는 지금 남는 치고 대승부는 이게 대시주고 있습니다.
Well, and so to draw it all together, it's saying that those who place their trust in the path that places the comforters are fortunate ones listen with an open heart. So it's saying that the path that pleases the comforters would be the path as a whole, that includes renunciation of bodhicitta and the right view of the correct view of emptiness, and that would be if we were to trust such teachings and practice, then this would be something that this would be one path that pleases all the comforters.
한번 시발을 가지고 저는 결된 대답 방에 있는 결된 대답 가서 봐 나와 잡아서 서고 나와 잡아서 개발에 대한 강사 대답 아니 얘네 주 간접 영어로나 아니 손에로 또 손에로 또 정보 내고 또 소리는 봐라 또 소리는 또 처음 하시거든요 이 얘기 좋아요 바로 좋아요 속셈에서 소리가 또 주변에 가서 또 정보내고 지금 대저로 또 정보내고 거네 한 뒤자 대답이 너희 의견 선방이 아마도 남기 하나의 고산하는 시공나라 정말 공무도 군주의 나라 너희 의견 선방 전혀 가서 너희 의견 선방 지금 전혀 주시는 가서 봤습니다.
So so the last one was unfortunately with an open heart. But the open heart here means like don't fall to either extreme. Don't have don't judge. Don't fall to one extreme or another. Have a sense of equilibrium when you listen to the teachings. So you have an open mind, and you should listen without the three faults of the vessel, which again is the people who have been teaching on words of my perfect teacher, that will explain quite extensively as to the three faults of the vessel in the conduct section when we receive teachings. I'll go to my own check. You're Benson.
한번 교수입니다. 나와 메데네가 암조수 대사 최최최최다. 나와는 대요 보내요. 그 암조에 나와요 원고디 최최 다들 맞아버리나. 근데 단계 가고 시작했습니다. 나와 메데 가고 되는
So for those who don't know what the three faults of death are, for the container, the first is even if you're sitting here and you do have the physical ear, you're not really listening. So it's like really having an upside down thought. It's just it's receiving nothing.
이번에도 이런 미진수가 그래서 제 감정을 태워 있네요. 이제 세미나로 지난 되죠. 마지막이다. 많이 버리나? 근데 샵도 많이 써봐야 됩니다.
Second is if you don't kind of recall the words and the meaning, it's like having a holy pot. It's a pot that's got full of holes.
또 순발이다. 연모 던질 수입니다. 그런 수입니다. 그런 데다 계절세다. 그런다. 연모 받아. 그런 사실 연모 도움이 되게 되니까 되게 쉬워거든요. 뭐냐면 되게 여기 나면 도로가 있어서 다들 핑만 보니까 도로에서 1년 남아 세로가 있나? 세로가 도착하고.
The third fault is if one's mind is like disturbed, emotionally kind of afflicted, then it's like having a vessel that has contaminants in it. So even if you try to pour good things into it, it just becomes contaminated.
뭐 당연히 최년 받을 최년 받을 맞아요 보내가 그래서 맞아요 최리 시행에서 미션바로 정말 수수 최년에 최년 받을 정말 미션바로 봐 최년 수수는 민가 아니라 또 아무래도 뭐들 더 시행으로 이들 공부들이 또 지금도 수교와 치마다 밥에치 하고 그리고 그런 많이 봐 제 다른 게 사실 그걸 감정 조절해서 내가 되는 거 그런 게 있다고.
What then that last one that is meaning to what the meaning of that is if we listen to teachings, receive teachings with arrogance or with a sense that you will use that for furthering one's own status, for one's like to really take these teachings and I'll be able to gain a name for myself, telling, teaching somebody else. So you're not really receiving the teachings with a pure heart and for true enlightenment and for true purification of oneself, but you're kind of thinking of what you can gain. So that. And so that's like the conduct that's associated when we do listen to commentary or teachings. Along with that, there's what we call the four metaphors, four assumptions.
최대 안정이듯이 최종보다 산재를 보고 아마 열심히 보거나 멤버이듯이 최연장들에 수주 생시와 다양한 맨 때마다 내일 저와기 아주 성부가 아니 바라고 양수는데 소리 주시 성부가 내시 좀 소리 주시 최대 양수에서나 수주 생시와 저보고 맨 때마다
So these four assumptions or the four metaphors are the first is like considering that one that we are like a patient, someone who has a certain illness. The Dharma would be the medicine. The teacher or the Lama or the Buddha would be like a doctor, and then in taking the medicine. Would be following the teachings on the path to really putting it into practice. And so in correcting any fault of the Gaku and in thinking in thinking of oneself and the Dharma and so forth with these four metaphors. And when we do listen to the teachings, do it with an open mind, with clarity, with actual interest, and be inspired by the teachings. And so with your ears wide open and with your heart embracing the teachings.
가만히 내려도 쭉 가만히 있는 거 아니니까 대충 군주를 잘 보고도 쭉 내려도 쭉 가능한 거 이제 그대로 가만히 있는
So in brief, is saying that when we do receive teachings, both the intention and the conduct is important. That's got to be applied.
리버드가 친구도 레이트나 저거 상관없는 내가 그거 아니면 그거
So just up to that point, it's just the first part of this text, which is the beginning, which includes the homage or the praise, the promise to compose, and then urging the disciples to listen. That's stretch goal, you know, what do you guys want to do? You getting tired? Yes. Praise and tired. Right. That's good.
2 hours. 2 hours.
Why don't I sound in? It wasn't your way, you're not doing anything. You want to take a little break? And then we'll come back if you want. If you don't want, you can go walk outside. Just sit outside. Then we'll have some food. I don't know if people brought things.
We can make some snacks if we want them all.
Right now? 15 minutes? No, they were doing 15
No,
minutes.
not in 15 minutes.
30 minutes, then we just start again for half hour until it one.
So, okay. Yeah. I need my breath. Would be the reason to cultivate renunciation. The second is the method to cultivate renunciation. And then the third is to understand how to measure the level to which we have cultivated renunciation.
방법이 이중 개발되는데 어디 가르쳐주려나 싸워나가 남단 이중 매번 실수에 내제 돈이 시작하면서 시가 감발이 되는 그는 승지 formally 이중 세르소가.
And so the root verse is, without pure renunciation, there's no means to pacify the yearning for the joys and fruits of samsara ocean, and as craving for existence, for the existence chain, and as craving for existence chain us thoroughly at first search for a true renunciation.
방법이 가르쳐주려나 남단 이중 매번 실수에 남다 이중 남다 시키고 이중 남다를 가르쳐 자르려나 이제 소수물에 다돼서 많이 봐서 완전히 소수물에 야와 얘가 저도 내리 소수물에 다돼서 많이 봐. 아니 고아치를 개화되고 그래서 고아치를 아니 대도다 대도 파도니 가만히는 속에 대달래냐 다들 보고도 고아치를 예도지 남바다는 이중이 삼바 추적고시 완전히 이게 보고를 그래서 되는 내가 송고도 내가 오늘 아마 이중라이드가 또 이중라이드 타바도 되고 삼바는 이중 타바도 되고 삼바 이중 샤바 있는 예 소수를 타도록 어디 다시 가로도 고아를 타도록 샤고는 제가 심마 다들 이제 tom나서 뭐 여봐야지 고아치 사고는 한거에는 고아치를 타도록 고아 차상 고아내 차상
So we should develop cultivate that pure renunciation. Which is existence, not just to rise above the lower realms of existence, but really to gain freedom, gain liberation out of entire cyclic existence itself.
이게 다들 이 말에서 자기를 내놔서 제대로 넘던 이승 이거를 수술을 내버리나
We do not, if we do not have true, the pure renunciation, then those thoughts to gain complete liberation will not arise.
어디 가면 강복관이 이게 대제 주인이 시외 타면은 대외 주고 거의 대외 대화다 교당 제보로서 괜히 이거 시외로도 시외다 시외를 너무 쓰는 거 같아 가져서 오면 지금 그거 중에 지금 그거 중에 기자도 전부 남도 양쪽에 대화 내내 지금 그거 지금 그거 일이 방도 제거해요. 그러니까 대화 기준점을 요만해 이제 대화 요가 정도 상황이네. 내가 대화 상담도 기준이 봐라. 엄마부터 동의 주고 그다음에 그런 일이 강도 저희는 얘는 얘기만 좀 다들 대화 내내
And so the second line here is this: the yearning for the joys and fruits of samsaric ocean. This is like saying that anywhere with some existence, if we seek the joys and fruits of samsaric existence, we do not have that pure renunciation. We should actually recognize that we're joys and advantages, we feel that those change and they are not lasting.
이제 제가 때문에 코에네 강도야 내가 매번 있네요. 수수기다 사회를 제고 참라 그거 좀 무서워 지나가는 정보 다 추천해. 그거 지금 코에네를 매번 있네요. 딱 되는 고도는 대화 매신 어두야 사실이 대화 내가 너무 이파지다 사실이 다시 주로 되는 소리 내가 차분히 들어와 그래서 대화 차분히 다들 연구를 시켜 그러나 지금 대외 지구 상가 미장을 지나가서 전부 다 사실 미장을 전부도 미장을 아니 전부도 미장을 강화해 보면 그다음에 시보코가 대단히 또 그런 일이 강요가 있네요. 아무 게 없네요. 저는 대화 눈을 쓰니까 저는 차도 대화 많이 나요. 대화를 선도는 정말 기능을 쓰는데.
So it's saying here that anywhere within cyclic existence, samsaric existence, the pleasures that we find, the pleasures that are derived from the five senses, forms and smells and tastes and feelings and so forth, that those are all transitory, and they do not bring true joy, true happiness. And because somewhat there's there's a certain there can be aspect to it, and it uses the example of like flies that are attracted to excrement, that they just kind of fly and swarm such filth, but it's and it's likening that to the pleasures of samsara that may be an entrapment.
지금 데려오는 차별 문제를 때문에 데려다 괜히가 단조야다 대통령 고려기가 되어 좀 도둑이 시작해서 매주치고가 괜히죠. 괜히 저거 이제 또 데려와도 친구로 정도 친구로 이루어진 바에 继续了1年的看几样希望的都把他们了。那这个国外的那边现在得到的，或者台湾上嘛，从这边台湾呢，也是写的湾呢，就是考虑那样，提了个6年吧，提了多年，那提了他到国外的，他到一个，给多嘛送吧，这考不也是。那么你说没了，那么2代的那么你说没事了，给到人物送的。
So there's like constant craving for these pleasures of existence, sort of pursuing them, and chasing after these pleasures. There will not arise a moment of true renunciation. That you will not really understand the nature of what's at stake. You don't really recognize that these pleasures are temporary and they don't hold the true happiness that we seek.
你死了，刚把送把的，死了刚把以前有些人送的，这个我觉得就是一个是吧？国外的，也对，国外的，国外的他对落地那边呢，然后国外的相信落地多么多人呢，是吧？这马上呢，你随便电话的，你估计就说那些，所以估计就说了下边当时送的对吧？估计就说了，这当时下边呢，当时地方多呢，或者当时都对吧？估计能去，那么不能去。这个弄，不知道呢，晓得的统计呢，统计不让的，
And so the third line being the craving for existence, chain us thoroughly. And so once again, if we are constantly pursuing temporary pleasures and happiness, which do not bring the ultimate joy, somewhat kind of self-defeating. You're chasing something which will not bring you true happiness, and it's somewhat like the serrations on a knife. It's like just like it kind of cuts through anything that really matters.
那你被现在的讲为呢，那你都看到那什么什么的吧？那么说了小说呢，那么他说了这个的，就说了差不多对的讲了，那么这什么的是吧？什么的就慢慢有了下文，慢慢我做没有记住吧？但是什么的都说了下文，没有说了下文，给我有不然的。So
going back to the attraction to the objects of the five senses, if like through sight, through the attraction to certain types of form, and it's likened to a moth being attracted to a flame. So it's actually, it has the detriment of killing that moth because it's just attracted to the flame.
聊了上述呢，但是他就是这种的，非常他就是这来就是这个甚至老外的、小外的说过这个，这并不就是产业，老外的讲产业，我们就是观念，聊了说过你这本身没带有的，我们大家的好嘛不，反正好嘛不，就是讲产业，就是说的人说的对吧？
And secondly, the sound, if it uses the example of deer being hunted, and if they may be distracted or attracted to like certain pleasant sounds and thereby do not recognize that they're being pursued and hunted. So that also leads to the detriment of such a being.
这就那些起来讲话呢，我们从来没做过什么，从来就是当时没做过去，你看这个上个就是那个没做那全面的说过，没做那些他说的世界新的。
The third is the scent, or smell. Scent it uses the example who are attracted to the scent of the flower, and sometimes that flower, the petals close around it.
하면서 롤을 잡아두다 야모들도 완전 야생의 동족이 자기 있잖아도 야다 잘 보여서 가리도 가리니까 또 야도도 셀라다 롤을 세우면 롤을 잡아야지 자기로 소개되고 자기 야도 생각보다
The fourth sense is taste. So this uses the example of fish like being hooked, like sort of being hooked and caught with certain types of bait.
근데 저기 남부도 남지 여러 남지 상황이 다들 지금도 그 남내로 남내로 누구도 남내로 있는데 내가 정말로 늘 정말 잘 먹어. 그 삼년 남지 좀더 땡는 뭐 이거에는 또 남나 맞지 남나 맞겠네. 남보다
And then fifthly, it's the sense object, the feeling, and this uses the example of the elephants who during summer may go into a swamp, go into a body of water to be cooled, to cool down, but sometimes that the muddy bottom may kind of sink. It might not have a solid bottom, and so that also hurts the elephant who's seeking some sort of pleasure, what are the coolness of the water.
그 상황을 내가 비대와 내가 비대와 토마산데 내가 비대와 처음에 수수수수가 수수 하나 수수 소인지 내가 제가 저거 되는 거예요. 그 배전상으로
So it's just using these examples to show that if one pursues certain happiness can have a detrimental or negative result.
그래서 아니 시가 까봐 얘기한 무슨은 시가 까봐도 비슷한 거 까봐는 시가 또 하나 또 잡아다 그거 같은 거 무슨 수도 쓰는 거 있네요. 예조이 그런데라 대단지 잡아다 세바다 제대로 무슨 아무 신경 안 쓰고 아무 신경 쓰지 계지 거지 시간을 통해 상례가 다들 요즘 마교원이나 요즘 거 마교원이나 그다음에 잡아다 준비하고 있습니다.
So just as back the line says, such cravings and such pursuits for pleasures, it changes thoroughly to psychic existence, and there's no thought to truly seek anything higher or anything beyond the callings of samsara.
그런 식으로 세발로다 이제 요거에나 하나의 중심으로 이렇게 세발 요거에나 기술 가지고 있는 거 이거 치마 한 대치마 치마로 쏘고 양자를 나는 거 그거는 개발인데 규칙을 쓰고 세발로
And such cravings, it just lasts. It's not just this lifetime, but it's something that kind of moves into the future. It continues into the future. If there's there will be predispositions for such cravings and such desires in the future lives.
이제 대원을 세니까 한번 씹어들기 보내주세요. 정말 이중 이제 대답을 때문에 이제 아주 수도 소리 많이네요. 정말 대단하다. 또 시베베 시베 속에 진짜 그거 시베더니 또 그런데더니 또 동행이 돈에서 하고 하시는 거죠. 동행이도 동생이 또 교도도 도와주고 하고 돈에 텔레 요즘 텔레 이 여보시고 내가 삼았는데 텔레 다들 이거 어쩌면 말인다고 다들 이거 아직 더 얻어내는 거지 행보지고 이렇게 깨워시고 그런 거.
So the last line is at first in the beginning then search for a true renunciation. And the point here is really honestly seeing the flaws in cyclic existence, the flaws in such pursuit of temporary pleasures. To really, through one's experience, really seeing that these pleasures are temporary and change, and it's subject to change, and it also could be subject to further miseries and disappointments. And so, from the beginning, so at first, we really need to seek a sense of renunciation.
되게 봐도 답변하나 요즘 게 그러고 있는데 정말 되게 다 저도 찍고 있는데 요즘 게 그러고 있는데
So that's it's, as I said, there were 3 parts to renunciation, and this basically lays out the reason for cultivation.
디저라다 요즘 게 답변하고
To
저 치마를 나셔도 이게와 세대리가 사실 도망가면 저 치마를 사실 도움이
And here it has 2 parts. One is to overcome the grasping to this life, and then the second is the attachment to a future life.
그러니까 도움을 갖고 배를 상생이가 도와줘요.
How to reverse that, how to actually eradicate that.
캄보디아 세대랑시 공급이 가능하나 이제는 한번이 송도 요즘에 제가 너무 내가 진짜 부족하고 진짜 부족하고 이 라인이
Judger?
제가
Judger?
이라 건데 세대랑시도 캄보디아가 세대가 나시도
So this is first by cultivating in mind that this human life is so hard to find, yet has no time to spare. Preoccupation with this life will cease.
또 대조권 또 대조권 성에서 대조가 나와야지 이게 지난 일이 공부 계단 전에 그래서 우리도 대화를 또 지난번에 대화를 했는데 공부 계단 전에 또 대화를 한 거가
Oh, this is talking about the 8 leisures, which are free from the 8 inopportune states. And I'm not going to get into this because I think many of you may know it already.
아마 공부 계단 제가 굉장히 대화시 아마 내지 서두르니까 주주요가 주주 고급요가 대화
So the word itself that you would have the leisure to do practice. And that's what it means. It's like Dela.
저를 해주서마다 통계에 나온다 생기 저거 주소가 강조마다
And then there's furthermore, there's what we call the 10 opportunities or 10 endowments. And that's divided into personal endowment and endowment which is reliant on something outside of oneself.
그 사람의 세번으로 인주랑 중간에 나올 상부에 실마를 랑중간에 신이 상부에
So again, for those who've been studying Gonzalo Mission, it's very clearly laid out in that book. But what it means by the 10 endowments or the 10 opportunities is that, as 10 endowments is having the 5 endowments, which are personal, they gradually offer to practice. And the 5 which are reliant on outer conditions, those are the 5 other endowments.
但是你的业报高的，也就是业高生的，业报高的就是业报高最最的，你长一波的业报高，背一波的业报高，有一波的业报高生的，这这个没问题，有一波的业报高的，有，但是确定的这部车，确定送的吧，确定的说呢，对吧？我对跟确定的现在说的是，我的他的你的都这个决定，确定做的现要说的是，有的他确定说的，对吧？
So it's saying that that these leisures and endowments are hard to find, and it often there's examples which are given as to how to view how difficult it is. It's given to us by way of numbers, by way of examples, by way of causes. We maintain the ethical approach to avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions.
这个非常新奇，这每个就确定送的，这好像公布了，比如小到确定两到送的，公布有个原因，有什么这样公布的送的了，有什么原因？
Indeed, it's difficult for most people to maintain avoidance of all 10 non-virtues. And therefore, it's difficult because there's not that cause. Then it's difficult for most people to really have the results.
长一波人家不高的，这长的什么？长个的吧，这怎么能给呢？米了甚至长个多了呢？米了的甚至长嘛的说的，或者呢说的，米了忙了一个，米哪里的那去准备的去开零嘛，去开马林巴，开零也多了呢，去开马林巴的这是蛮不错的，也蛮舒服的。去准备哪里呀？那这样。수로 뭐 예를 들면 남바 최신이 되는 그리고 뭐 남배 나는 게 아주 대고 중국의 친구들이 예 지금 대고 친구들이 그래서 그 매치 네 그래요 공부해요.
And so, besides the cause, it's also explain way of numbers, like so we could kind of be given an idea of what that means. And so it'll be explained if you think of human beings on Earth compared to the number of insects, let's say ants, the number of ants that are existent on the planet, there's no comparison. And then even if you talk about human beings, there are so many that have no spiritual inkling, and of those who do have a spiritual practice, there may be like it might not be complete, be like outer, inner, and so forth. There might not all have these spiritual paths might not completely right view or the completely right practices and so forth. And even if you're talking about Buddhist path, Buddhist practice, there's like those of there's different levels of Buddhist practice. And then by way of example, I think many of you're familiar with the example of the blind tortoise floating in the ocean, who just happens as he's floating to put his head through a yoke, like a wooden yoke that's floating around, tossed here there on a very vast ocean. So that's how difficult it is to find an earth that's that have the leisures and endowments.
당신이다. 바로 유지도. 양자 내내가 명으로 되는 means.
The second line is that yet even find such a human birth, there's no time to spare. And preoccupation with this life will cease because there's only so much time that we have on this planet. And when that time comes, there's actually there's no add-ons. Can't really add more to it.
발음에 우리가 아니 끝나신 발전 정말 있습니다. 그때가 바질레는 남부로 제가 발전 대인되는 중에도 지금 유린 결혼에 대해서 지금 세대가 그리고 지금 보다 요 말에서 간단하다 지원하는 거 되게 제가 두고 있어요.
And also there seems to be many obstacles in life. There's always some problems, some obstacles, interferences that raise its ugly head. And Pachimampo, any Shanyakaisuzo? So it's certain death will happen, but it's uncertain when that happens.
I'm going to
say that at the time of passing, that besides for Dharma, there's nothing else that truly helps.
테레비에 다시 가는 수준이 세대에 다시 좀더 다시 저거 다시 요원이다 이거부터 이거로 소발에 사셔버리는데 다 되게 마음 다시 정말 고민이 무슨 소리인지 아마 받으면 이게 저도 동에 마음 정도가 마음 정도가 있는데 대답을 상담에 같이 가는 거 대답에서 상담 건들 주고 있는 거가 양양 공부 순간 동의기다 양식인가 양양 상담 당고 있습니다.
So at the time of passing, Dharma is really the only factor that helps. And whatever has been accumulated throughout life, throughout one's lifetime, and negativities, non-virtuous actions and deeds and so forth, the results of those will follow up. And one will have to experience the results of those causes.
Somebody
And so in seeing the results that are experienced, the different sufferings that come from non-virtue, we should actually also contemplate that. Think of the different types of suffering that sentient beings experience. Furthermore, it's important to not just be obsessed with this life alone, the prosperity, wealth, fame, and all the greatness that we think are associated with life, because that is all temporary, it all passes. So the whole point here is don't be so attached to what is just temporary, and be able to see through, to cut through and see the reality.
这个彻底同意一个的不多数呢，那么起码同意一个逻辑的，给我去就是结果的，对吧？就是的，彻底那些多个的，彻底那些多嘛的来的，这给我起码的什么是什么那个人呢，是吧？给我彻底那些多把都是彻底相符的，
最起码
起码同意一个，起码同意一个是结果的，彻底结果同意了那个。
So once we recognize and see through the pleasures and fame and whatever wealth and so forth in this life are indeed temporary, then there comes a point where there's not that deep sense of grasping and attachment to this life alone, and there's a sense of renunciation. At which point there's kind of looking forward to a future life. So that leads to the second point, that even giving up the attachments to this life and having some renunciation, just to think that in the future life we'll have more happiness or better situations in birth as gods and men. We also need to overcome the attachment to them, because, as you know, even the states of gods and men are within the cycle of samsara existence, and so you also need to reverse and overcome any attachment to that as well. And so this leads into having considered the suffering of attachment to temporary pleasures, having renunciation, giving up renunciation to this life, look into the future, but also seeing that that's within samsara. Then we also have to think that whatever seeds we planted in our actions, that there's the cause and effect of karma, and that there's no defeating that the seeds and the results of that karma, that it is whether it's white or black action, that there will be those results that will be kind of the results of those actions that will come about. Which is usually the example of planting seeds. If you plant like seeds, if you plant rice, you will get sprouts for that particular grain, and so forth. Whether it's legumes or whatever, you'll get the sprouts and plants for that.
거의 동네 고아치 동네 다시 유주수 동네 뭐 영화 이가 저기 동네 하다 위다 아마 있는 동네 야나 동네 숨 동네 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 잡아 주제 동네 딱 고아치 지난 세상에 동네도 이 많이 주의는 상황하고 있습니다. 거기 동네는 양양 삼성가
And so it says by contemplating repeatedly the truth of karma and samsara suffering. And this is, we can think of this suffering in different ways. In general and specific. Cheat and J-Chop. We can think about if we have had commentary on the sufferings of the various realms of rebirth, the three lower realms, animals, creators, and hells, and so forth, and then also even the higher states of existence, contemplate and kind of think over all the different specific sufferings of beings in samsara existence. You can also think of the three types of sufferings: the suffering of change, the suffering of suffering, and the kind of all pervasive type of suffering. And so you can look at this, contemplate this, and this.
어디 가신 곳이나 같이 깨워 치마 받는 일은 전화서 내가 토가 있나 혹시 저도 대화 타도 토가 된 사람 사무실다 도도가 받는 일은 토가 있나요 치마 아니야 살아야 파이도 뭐로 다 체크를 치고는 그냥 매일 깨워 있나요 매일 깨워 내서 보내서 보내고 있는데 깨워 치마 받는 일은 상주 받는 일은 토가 있나요 뒤에 감수야 동행 연구가 그래서 동행은 하고 있나 교화심을 하던 일에 하던 일에서 대화 차고차고하니까 노도 오신 거가 다양한 삼나 지면 나시고.
So this type of contemplation on even the disadvantages or the shortcomings of the higher realms of gods and men, this will discourage us from just thinking we want a better rebirth and a better situation in the future lives. Because if we remember, even in the realm of the gods, or as we know, even for humans, there's suffering in those worlds of human and godly existence, and so this encourages us to want to traverse all cycles of existence in samsara and not get stuck thinking we want to be born as a human and or God.
그래도 지면도 도가 있나 아니 되게 도서니까 도서로니까 타고도 되고 레인데스 타고도 이거 지면도 도서나 되게 잘 타고도 되고 지금 실수라고 되는 것입니다.
And if by contemplating and thinking in such a way, then this is an antidote to not be preoccupied with just the next life and being born in a better, being born with better conditions and so forth. That will cease, and the wish, the thought, the aspiration to gain full liberation will come about.
되게 집에 나시도 벌써가 심하게 나시고 대바도 벌써나 유전계를 탑도 유전계를 탑도
And so this is the method on how to cultivate renunciation.
심하게 세대기 자신의 담보도와 담보도를 탑시해서 다시 담보디 세대기가 대화를 샤바를 도답시 이와도 대화 심하게 대화 저도 샤바를 샤바디 도답이 서로 이 도다
So once again, it's divided into two parts. So the first is recognizing that all pleasures and pursuit certain types of happiness are temporary and could lead to more suffering because everything is temporary. So that will kind of give us the incentive to pursue a better situation in the future life and not just be attached to this life alone. However, once you recognize that even if we're born as in a better rebirth as a human or as a god, that there continues to be further suffering as long as we're within the cycle of existence. So we need to also be freed from such preoccupations and gain a true wish to attain liberation out of samsara existence. So the third part of that renunciation is how to measure how do you know what you've accomplished? How do you measure how much renunciation you truly have? So this is the federation arises for the propensities, is that what it says, of cyclic existence, prosperities, sorry, and as you habituate in this way, and when not even for an instance of admiration arises for the prosperities of psychic existence, and the thought aspiring for liberation arises day and night. At this point, true renunciation has arisen. And so just as the words say, as you habituate yourself to contemplations, thinking about samsara in such a way, whether it's like samsara in this life, the pleasures and the different opportunities that that we may feel that we have and pursue to really see through them and to where we want to pursue a future better life and so forth. We get to the point where we want to get out of samsara altogether. And so when you're at that level, then you won't have even for an instant there's no attraction to cyclic samsaric existence anymore. There's not the admiration, there's not the attraction, there's not the pursuit. It's like somebody who has a certain type of illness, like if they have nausea, then there's not a desire to eat because they're just they have nausea. So it's just like feeling nauseous towards samsara. Or even that those pleasures and wealth and prosperity or whatever pleasures are explained as existent in God realms, even there we have no aspiration to be born there. And so when you arrive at such a point, when you can really recognize that you've reached that level of renunciation, when there's no the thoughts to aspire for more of the thing is no longer there, and there's only the thoughts that aspire for liberation. This comes, it's like day and night, it's like constant. So that is the point where it shows that you have a true renunciation. So this verse points to the level, the sort of the measurement, how you can gauge how far you've come in your renunciation practice. You really understanding renunciation. For like perhaps there are folks who have memorized or can memorize those three principal aspects of the path. If you have it committed to memory, then when these words come up in your mind, then all of this flows, all of the explanations and all the reasonings will just like expand beyond those words. The words themselves leads to a deeper thought, especially if you have that further understanding. And the words themselves are quite clear, but if you have like an extension of that, then it really fills out the whole picture. So for a true Buddhist practitioner to have a true sense of renunciation, because without it, your practice can remain rather superficial, because you're just still doing it for, this life alone. You're doing it for all the worldly entrapments, worldly aspects of life. But if you really have that sense of renunciation to really go beyond samsaric existence, go beyond just this life alone, beyond the higher forms, beyond all the pleasures and trappings of samsara, then that really gives you more impetus and more feeling, more aspiration to gain true liberation. So, when we talk about renunciation, you could apply this to the different scopes of practitioners, initial, middling, or higher scope of practitioner. Often this renunciation comes at this middling sort of level.
女性有中的他的这个什么，国际的他的落的说话，结果经历过，这个经历什么？
Because the person of the initial scope, the practitioner of the initial scope, is that person that wants to just be freed of the sufferings of the lower realms. Whereas the person of the middling scope would want to be freed of samsara itself.
근데 나 대고 친구 가지고 다시 고맙단 말인 봐. 현재 담주기도 타고산 말인 거. 아니 고맙산 타고산 말인 거. 다들 이거산 말인 거. 현재 담주기도 사기 고맙 저게 뭐 상관도 되지. 기부 친구이 상관.
And so, in the person, the practitioner of the highest scope would be not only do we have not only are we inspired to gain liberation, but we want to gain complete liberation and enlightenment for the sake of benefiting other living beings.
네가 자주 쓴 다들 남이 소 너무 숨이 나니까 네가 아니 자주 있으면 네가 가지고 내는 거 자주 있어.
And that's where we have come to be part on Bodhicitta.
리버드가 무중비 서비스 리버드 서비스가 그게 숨이.
So for today, we have finished the section on renunciation.
그래서
Go to the second.
그래서 무슨 말이든 정상 이렇게 가보려고. 그래서 저가지만 뭔가 뭔가 너무 저거는 바에 무슨 어떻게 해야 하고 나중에 그거 상황을 하고
It's not something that comes easily, renunciation. Whether we're a lay practitioner or even for monastics and monks, there's a lot of attachment that exists and that exists. So it's not something that comes easily. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So next week we'll continue. If we don't finish, we can always do another Zoom class. Are you guys good? Noah? Dedication, one life prayer, and thank you.